So this session's topic will be dodging and burning. My name is Sam Elogio, and thank you for providing me the opportunity to give you a quick little demo. So why would we use dodging and burning? To add dimension to an image, to draw the viewer's eye into the image, to isolate the subject, to minimize distracting backgrounds, turn the lights on. Should you actually have lights, you can uh, mimic the idea that the lights are actually on by brightening the light. Make an image more dramatic or moody, and add a vignette. We're going to now dodge and burn using the dodge and burn tools that are native to Photoshop, and we're going to be adding the changes to a 50% gray layer. Doing this makes these changes non-destructive. So we're going to have to start off with this image by adding two layers. We're going to click the Option button and on my Mac and the Create New Layer. I'm going to give this layer a name called Dodge, and we're going to come down to the mode, select Overlay, and then check the 50% gray box here. And what that's done is it's created our Dodge layer. Now we're going to do the same thing, Option on my Mac, click, and then we're going to call this Burn. We're then going to come down and select Overlay, click the checkbox, and there we go. So now let's come down to the Dodge. We're going to go over to our tools and make sure that Dodge is selected. I'm going to make sure that 30% is where I want to work at. If you work at 100%, it's too big of a difference and it's too stark. You can choose the drop down here to focus in on shadow areas, midtones, and highlights. We're going to concentrate on midtones in our example. So I'm going to make, using a very soft brush. So when we look at my brush, the hardness is 0%. The size is about 400 to 500 pixels. Let's make this a little larger in this case. And the opacity, as I said earlier, is 30. So let's come in here and let's just paint in some lighter color. Now I'm not being exact, I'm just trying to illustrate my point. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, click in there, make it really small so I can get that part of the walkway, and then maybe just put some more light in here. I'm going to now try and make the rest of the image a little darker. We'll come back and revisit this mother and child in a moment. So let's go to the burn. Let's make my brush substantially larger, and I'm going to burn in, oh, I made a mistake. This is one you will make often. Change your tool. So I'm going to come in and go to burn. I had left it in Dodge. So now when I start to paint, actually I see I painted over there, I'll have to fix that. Okay. And I'm just darkening parts of the image that I want to sort of take away the attention. And fix that little mistake I made in here. I will lighten this area up a bit. Again, I would be much more careful and not get on the grass. And now what I want to do is draw some more attention to this mother and child. So I'll just add some more light. Okay. So we highlighted the area with the mother and child, so that draws some attention to it. Here's the before and after. So this is before and after. So you notice the walkway is a little brighter, so it draws your eye into the mother and child. We've darkened everything else around it, so it plays less of a part in the image. As I look at it, I could have probably made this area substantially darker. Burn tool, and let's just burn that in some more. And let's burn those two individuals. So there you go. So before and after. In this example, we're going to be using curves layers to add dodging and burning to my image. So we're going to be adding two curves layers. So we will come down to the layers options and select curves once. Let's close this off. Let's come down here again, select curves a second time. Let's close the property panel for now. So the first one, we will double click on it and we will call it dodge. The second one, we will double click and call it burn. Please note that by default, when you add your curves layers, masks are added automatically for you. Please note that white masks mean any changes we make will be seen immediately. If this were a black mask, it would be hidden. We will be seeing that momentarily. So let's click on the dodge. So we're going to highlight. So let's double click on that and let me explain briefly what curves does. This is a histogram, and when I move this diagonal line up or down, at this point I will be dealing with the darker areas, the darker tones. At this point I will be dealing with the mid-tones, and at this point I will be dealing with the highlights. So I'm going to want to move this down in order to add lightness to the image. And I'll just leave it at that. For this one, the burn, I'm actually going to go the other way, and I'm going to add some darkness to the image. So let's shut this down. Let's come back to the dodge now. So we're going to be painting in. So the first thing I need to do is remove the white and make it black. So I'm going to press Command I on my Mac for that, and Command I on that one. And what that does is basically hides the effect of the dodge and the burn that I did on a global basis. And what we're now going to do is actually paint the changes that we made back in, but I'm going to paint them in where I want them. A couple of things we need to do. First off is make sure that white is selected. So it's already at white, so we'll leave it at that. We will press B on my keyboard to bring up the brush tool. Change my opacity to a much lower number because I want to paint this in much more gradually. If I went in at 100%, it's a big bang, and that wouldn't give me the effect I'm after. It's not as forgiving. So let's do similar things. We want to lighten up. So I want to make sure I'm on the dodge. So make sure that the black square has the highlight around it, and come in with my soft brush and just paint in over the area as much as I need to where I want to draw your eye. So let's add a little bit more brightness there. I'll make my brush smaller, add that in there. I believe then in the previous example we went in and made this darker, so we're dealing with the darker tones on the burn, so I'm going to make my brush substantially larger and start painting in over top of the trees, and make my brush a little smaller. Come in here. We kind of hid those people, brought that in like that, and then we came back in the previous example to the dodge, and we actually highlighted these folks a little bit, and then we put these two inside of a group or folder, so Command G, and now we can turn this on and off. So you can see the definite effect. I've brightened up so our eyes being drawn in. These folks are a little brighter. If in fact, the beauty about this one is now that I've made these changes, I can still continue to work on them. I can say, you know what, my brights aren't as bright as I had wanted them to be, so come up here and just move this down, and I'll exaggerate it so you can really see the difference, but you can do this to it, That's one way of changing it. Or if I made these far too bright, so let's make this exaggerated, I can come down here and just work on the opacity and move the slider, and let's reduce the opacity so the effect is not so heavy. So let's make it 70%. Okay, so now when I click the on-off button on the group, you see the before and the after. So we're going to use the Nik Silver Efex Pro 2 plugin to do some dodging and burning inside of this image. So the first thing we want to do is actually start the plugin. So I'll click on it. And we're not going to work with any of the presets. Just going to start with the plain bare bones version, the default version of the grayscale image. And what we're going to do is add these control points, which basically allows me to control what I want to do in terms of brightness. And there are other options. All we're talking about is brightness here. So I'm going to brighten up the sidewalk ever so slightly by about 10 or 13%. And then going to press the option button on my Mac. And what that does is it duplicates this control point, and you'll see the circle. That's called the area of influence. So anything within that circle, based on the boundaries of what I'm doing, will be impacted. So if we want to look at the before and after, so you can see that my walkway is brighter. So what we're going to do is continue to do some of that work right in behind, and perhaps not as bright. So we're going to tone that down, and I'm going to make my area of influence much smaller and just duplicate that and duplicate that. All right, so now we're going to darken most of the remaining part of this image very quickly. So I'm going to drop that in. I'm going to make my area of influence actually a little larger in this case because I'm trying to really speed this along, and I want to make this darker, so I'm removing light, and I will do the same thing. I will duplicate it and bring it in over here, duplicate it and bring it in over there. So what it's actually doing is creating a mask. And if I were to click on the check mark there for that particular control point, you can see the white area, and that's the area it's performing the actions when I'm moving these little dials along. All right, so let's actually steal some of these and duplicate them over on this side. And there you go. So you can very quickly see, again, before and after, how I can shape the image to the way I like. Let's actually give her some more light. So let's come in, we'll drop a control point on her, we'll brighten her up a bit. All right, we'll make the area of influence just a little smaller so it's really on her and the child. So again, let's actually look at it before and after. Well, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to show you my favorite methods for dodging and burning. It should be noted that there are many ways of doing this. I have only shown you the ones that I typically use in my workflow. Thank you and take care.